The Ancient Gods was a mistake. Kinda. Hear me out. There are a lot of things in here that are good, but there are also things in here that make me raise a holographic eyebrow. And there are other things here that make me scowl and go, what were they thinking? Before we dive into the DLC, I gotta say thanks to everyone who watched the first video. I'm surprised it did half as well as it did, to be honest. So again, just thank you all for that. And if you're somehow watching this video without watching the last part where I covered the base game in its entirety, it should be somewhere on the screen right now. So let's get into why I say the Ancient Gods was a mistake. Kind of.
Whenever you're ready. We cannot regain control of Urdak without the Seraphim's help. You broke the seal when you awakened the icon of sin in their world.
The DLC for Part 1 sets the stage as to why we're doing what we're doing in a pretty effective and to the point way, which I appreciate.
I knew it was here.
Sir, weather's disrupting the signal, but we'll be able to teleport him onto the rig's main deck.
Dr. Hayden, ready to launch the package, sir.
Whenever you're ready. We cannot regain control of Urdak without the Seraphim's help. You broke the seal when you awakened the icon of sin in their world. The balance between their two dimensions has been broken with the demons now in control of Urdak.
Portal ready in 3, 2...
So, HULT taking control of Urdak puts even more realms at risk of demon invasion, which, of course, makes our job a lot harder. And there's still demons running amok on Earth, so we kind of need to do something about that too. So they're off to the UAC Atlantica facility where they've had the Seraphim the entire time. I don't think I mentioned it in the last video, but the Seraphim is the one who put the Doomslayer in a machine called the Divinity Machine that gave him his powers. He went missing sometime after that, and it turns out the UAC has had him, and Hayden knows about this and knew about it the entire time. Why does he know that, and why does he have the Seraphim and had him this entire time and didn't say anything? The answer should be kind of obvious based on what was said about Hayden in the base game, and the fact that Vega is the father, the being that the makers view as a god, but I'll talk about that later. The first thing I noticed when the DLC started was, damn, this is a beautiful level. I love the waves and the storms, and it just looks awesome. The other thing I noticed is, damn, this DLC is noticeably harder than the base game, especially if you're playing on Ultra Violence like I was. Why did I do that to myself? You start off with all the upgrades and weapon mods in the base game, so even if you didn't unlock all the upgrades before, you got them now. And you're gonna need them, because the devs are out for blood. Sorry to interrupt the video for a second, but I need to talk to you about something. So, in addition to running a YouTube channel, I'm also an author with 3 books out at the time of making this, and it would really mean a lot if you guys check them out on Amazon. Currently, I have the Renegade series, which has 2 books in it, with a 3rd one in the works. It's a sci-fi action adventure story in the spirit of 90s cartoons and comics. The series follows a team of heroes, each with their own unique abilities, one of them being a sword-wielding, water-bending alien named Ronan. This group, called the Renegades, protect their world from all sorts of threats. The second book, Blackout, has a team following a lead on their arch nemesis, and they end up in their universe's version of Japan. The team find themselves in the crosshairs of a dangerous group of mercenaries and the shadowy group that hired them. As things escalate between them, the mercenaries, and the ones pulling their strings, the entire fate of the island hangs in the balance, as it is plunged into darkness and held hostage with the aid of a powerful weapon called Blackout. If you're looking for something less serious and more whimsical, consider checking out Tales of the Edgeworlds Volume 1. It's a collection of 4 zany, off-the-wall comedy stories set in a broken multiverse, and features characters such as a violent, short-tempered, foul-mouthed, gun-toting space penguin named Edgy, and his crew of oddballs getting into crazy hijinks, involving mutants, space mafias, and vampires, that are also from space. It also includes a story about a dorky, clumsy combat android named Mika 227 that tangles with a feared space pirate captain to save some miners. It also recently got an audiobook, which only amplifies the hilarity in these stories, and it really makes the characters jump off the page with the over-the-top voices that the narrator does. The link to my Amazon page for all 3 books will be in the description and in the pinned comment. Back to the video. The third thing I noticed is, there's no Mick Gordon music at all. Yeah, due to the situation between Bethesda and Mick, he did not return for the DLC, and instead we got Andrew HULT and David Levy. Andrew HULT is a name that is probably familiar to people who play a lot of retro shooters. He did the music for Dusk, a fantastic 3D shooter that feels like a throwback to Quake 1, complete with the Lovecraftian stuff. And he also did soundtrack for Medieval, which is a fantasy-themed retro FPS that I've also played and would recommend. He's done scores for a bunch of other games too, those are just the 2 that come to mind for me. And a lot of the scores he does probably wouldn't feel out of place in a Doom-style game. Hell, he even remade all of Doom 1's music at one point, and I've seen people add that to like their mods and stuff, and it's really cool. For some reason though, I didn't find much about David Levy when looking at sites mentioning who was doing the music for the DLC, so I'm not sure what he contributed here. Someone will probably tell me what he did in the comments. But the music for the DLC, well, I won't say it's bad. I just don't like it as much as Mick's music. But there are a few songs in here that I kind of like. The theme for the Blood Swamps area that we'll see later is really good. But like I said, I just don't like it as much as Mick's music. Unfortunately, the quality of the music, in my opinion, overall gets worse when you get to the second DLC. There's maybe 1 or 2 exceptions to that, but we aren't there yet. Going back to this level, our goal is to first get the Seraphim key, which we need to release the Seraphim. And the game wastes no time to remind you that the Marauder's here because they have him come out of a portal pretty early on. Yeah, they use the Marauder a lot in this DLC, and in ways that may make you want to pull your hair out if you don't like fighting them. But anyway, we also encounter a new, and I feel like calling them an enemy is overselling them because it's more like a hazard. It's a turret. Remember the Calibus turrets in Necrovol Part 1? Yeah, these are those basically. You gotta shoot them in the eye when it pops out of the base of the turret. They actually can take a lot of damage. Surprisingly, like it takes 2 precision bolt hits to kill one. On top of that, the game does some neat stuff with the platforms. Like there are parts where you have to shoot switches to swing a shipping crate for you to land on and then ride to get to the next part of the level. There's also sections where you have to shoot switches to either activate or deactivate wind turbines to either launch you towards something to grab or to stop you being pushed to your death. As we pick up the key, the UAC decides to be a bunch of salty bitches and blow up the base.
Seraphim's chamber. Now, we work to resurrect the only ones who can save this world and its people.
Warning, the Seraphim's chamber key has been removed. The Slayer has the key. This facility will self-destruct in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.
The Seraphim is the key to the human salvation.
This changes the whole vibe of the place, and I like this look too. Seeing all the fires contrasting with the raging ocean is a feast for the eyes, when you aren't getting mauled to death by the demons. At one point we end up in a submarine, and then we have to swim down to a hidden section of the facility at the base of the ocean floor. There are sharks here, and I recall them actually attacking you if you let them get too close to you. But they're easy to avoid, so it's not a big deal. We make our way inside into a giant room that totally doesn't look like a final arena before you rescue the Seraphim. I'm sure this won't be a complete nightmare.
Prepare for trouble and make it double.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yeah, 2 Marauders at once. They showed this for a split second at the end of the Ancient Gods Part 1's like reveal trailer, and I already felt myself cringing at the frustration to come. Even now, yeah, this is still pretty frustrating. And tough. And that's just the start of the encounter too, because they throw more enemies at us for a while. At least they were nice enough to give you a checkpoint after you kill 2 Marauders, because it would have been beyond miserable if you had to repeat all of that. After you eventually win that, you meet the Seraphim.
He is the one who gave you your power. It was divine intervention. I am going to transfer my consciousness into the device, as Vega did. I am here to help you, as I have always. And now, they will fear you. We have been allies for some time now. I knew who you were the moment you set foot in our world, and who you could become to us. I brought you to the Divinity Machine and gave you your power. Where would all of this be now had I not had the foresight to create you? Your gifts are owed to us now. Repay the Father for all he has granted us both by returning him to his throne, and then he will save us all.
Dr. Hayden is the Seraphim. He's been with us the entire time.
I am sorry. There's no need
You
for
need to see this because he's not well. Something is happening and nobody here knows what's wrong with him.
Well, we don't know yet.
The Father's life sphere sits atop the IMMORA sanctum, located in the blood swamps of hell. My body is undergoing rapid transfiguration. It is why I need the Father. Reach the tomb and acquire the Father's life sphere. Bring him back into physical form. I will not be able to join you. Makers cannot set foot in the dark realm. I will be waiting for you at the sanctum.
The Seraphim cannot retrieve the sphere. It's forbidden.
I have the Blood Swamp's location online.
Be grateful. Despite your transgressions, you are given the honor to serve the gods yet again.
Yeah, Hayden was the Seraphim the whole time, who'd have thought. He sends us off to the Blood Swamps to recover the Father's life sphere because we need to restore his body so he can banish the demons from Urdak and kick them off Earth. Overall, this is a fun level. It feels a bit longer than some of the base game levels, but maybe that's because of the difficulty here, as it feels pretty grueling, and looking at the length of the recording, it was over an hour, while me getting through the Super Gore Nest was about 40-something minutes. But if you thought the first level was hard, you ain't seen nothing yet, because now we gotta go to the Blood Swamps. The Blood Swamps, I swear, is the longest level in the DLC, and I'd say it's the most grueling. Yeah, this is more grueling than the double Marauder fight we just went through. I can't believe I'm saying that either. When we get here, our objective in-game says we're here to destroy the Father's life sphere. Not what Hayden, I mean the Seraphim told us to do.
I see your mission objective states that you're going to destroy the sphere, not retrieve it.
I'm sure that won't be an issue later. According to some lore in the base game, the Blood Swamps are where those deemed unfit to be tortured and converted into Argent energy were sent. Not gonna lie, with a name like Blood Swamps, I was expecting it to be, I don't know, a little more bloody, but I'm actually fine with it not being that. I mean, it will be a lot bloodier by the time we're done here because the difficulty ramps up, as I've already stated. Again, the game has you fighting a Marauder pretty much right out of the gate. and that's not the only one we'll be seeing. And somehow, that's not the worst thing we run into either. You'll also notice giant versions of those tentacles we see sometimes in the base game. They're kinda annoying and hit harder than the smaller ones, but outside of that, they are the same. There's also these yellow egg-looking things that explode and release toxic gas if you stay near them, and they regenerate, so be mindful of where you are. Our goal is to reach the IMMORA sanctum where the Father's life sphere is located, but to do that, we gotta complete the Trial of Malagog. Trial of Malagog? That sounds like some D&D shit. I gotta write this down for whenever I decide to DM again. But before we can even complete the trial, we need to get the 2 pieces of a shield, which has been broken into halves, and each one is located down a path branching off from the central area. And to get the shield parts, not only do we need to go down those paths, we have to fight through some pretty grueling arenas inside the castles at the end of each path. Both castles, according to the in-game map, have names referencing Doom 3. One of them being called Betruger Castle, and the other being Ishii Castle. Now, if you played Doom 3, the name Betruger should be familiar to you because it's the name of the antagonist. As for where the Ishii name came from, it comes from Jonathan Ishii, the scientist you met in Doom 3, that tried to get a message out to Earth to warn everyone about what Betruger was up to right before the invasion started. And I'm not gonna lie, I had to look that up on the wiki to figure out what that was referencing. Cool nod. One of the paths does something pretty devious. They deploy a buff totem that's hidden in a smaller area away from all the demons. When you land in there though, you find out that the totem is protected by a gate, and then the game throws a marauder at you. And yes, this marauder is empowered by that totem. After you cut him down and take away the demon's supply of Arnold's, you run into the first true new enemy of the DLC, and one of the reasons why this DLC is so hard. Meet the Spirit. So the way the Spirit works is, it can't attack you directly, so instead it possesses a nearby demon, and this demon gets buffed. And not like a barely noticeable damage buff either, you will notice this. And it makes any demon that the Spirit possesses a fucking tank. They attack much faster, move faster, and genuinely just seem way more aggressive. If you do manage to kill their host, they can swap to another demon in the area and possess them. So how do you kill them? Remember in the video for the base game where I said the microwave beam has one specific function, but that was only for the DLC? Yeah, it's the only weapon that can kill a spirit. Killing them will cause them to drop a charge for the blood punch. Oh, and a bit of trivia, the design for the spirit is based on the summoner enemy from Doom 2016. To this day, I don't know how to feel about them. On one hand, they do wrap up the difficulty, and the idea of an actual enemy that hops from enemy to enemy giving them a buff is an interesting one. However, forcing me to use the microwave beam to get rid of them, that's not fun. The microwave beam slows down your movement, and you have to stay close to the target, which can be stressful when there's a bunch of other demons chomping at the bit to kill you. Another issue I've seen even after years of patches is sometimes the microwave beam will just not lock onto the spirit, or it'll randomly disengage. I'm not entirely sure what causes this, and this can be a problem because the spirit moves very quickly to possess something else, especially if you're not using the microwave beam on it. And I've heard that apparently they did actually nerf them a bit in patches because, and maybe this is just me misremembering things, but compared to when the DLC came out, it feels to me like they die a lot faster and they don't jump to the next body quite as fast, which is great, and it makes them a lot more fun to actually engage with. The game does another devious thing later. It puts you in an open area that's shrouded in a fog that you can barely see a damn thing in, and then it throws a bunch of enemies at you. And the game also decides that pinkies aren't the only ones that get a cloaked variant. The whiplashes get them too. Eventually you'll make it to the first arena. Get comfy because you might be here a while unless you're really good at the game, because they throw everything in the kitchen sink at you, including a buff totem at the start, then get a few tough waves, and another buff totem spawns in. And if that wasn't bad enough, in the final wave, the game sends 4 barons at you, and one of them will be possessed. he will mess you up. After that, congratulations, you passed the first part of the pre-trial, I guess. Now we gotta get to the other path. And this one does something interesting. A green mist fills the area that damages you if you're standing in it, and your only safety is a green spirit wolf that projects a dome of safety around it. You gotta follow the wolfie as he lights these braziers on the map. Each one he activates causes a horde of demons to spawn. The last one decides to chuck a marauder at you. I'm almost tempted to do a marauder count for this level, but I'm not going to. But clearing the final brazier lifts the danger mist and lets you roam around. The other arena here is surprisingly a lot more reasonable than the last one, but they do throw a possessed arachnotron at you, so don't think you can slouch on this one. Once you get the shield pieces, we aren't done because now the actual trial can begin. Are you exhausted yet? So the trial has you fighting sentient blocks that open up and reveal an eyeball that you have to shoot when they try to attack you. Once you defeat a block, you gotta punch it into the barrier at the center. If you don't do it fast enough, the block will regenerate its health. While this is going on, other demons will spawn in, because of course they do, and they will not stop attacking you. You've got 3 waves of killer blocks to deal with. And on the third wave, instead of just fighting one murder block, you gotta fight 2 of them at the same time. After you pass the trial, you are brought to the Sanctum, and the Seraphim is here.
Hurry, retrieve the Father's soul sphere. He will save Urdak from the demons. For the humans' sake. Do it now.
This is the Dark Lord's life sphere. He'll take physical form if you do this.
Yeah, we had to get our get back for what Hayden did back in 2016. He's big mad because he really needs his father to stop him from mutating, but now he's just fucked. Sucks to be him.
This is an emergency. Please evacuate the facility now.
So long as you have a life sphere, you can get through to Urdak. Your portal signature will read like you're one of them. Listen, whatever we do, I'm in. You want to wake the devil not so you can help the demons, it's so you can kill their leader once he's taken physical form. And that'll destroy all of them, for good. Right? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. I just want to be part of this. I mean, we're about to save the world. The Dark Lord has only ever been written about. He's like a decillion years old and hasn't actually even been conjured into any kind of physical form for that long. Nobody even knows what he looks like. So, like I said, I'm in.
So we head off to the HULT and onto the I can never say this word. Onto the Luminarium. Why did my processor short circuit and want to say Lumimarium? Oh man, I need a software update, holy shit. But the Luminarium, I got it right this time, is the place where we can resurrect someone from a life sphere. Apparently, if we resurrect the Dark Lord and kill him in ritual combat, all the demons outside of Hell will die on the spot, and Hell's connections to other realms will be severed, so Hell will basically be quarantined. This would save Earth and stop the demons from invading other realms. Sounds like a win-win to me, unless your name is the Seraphim and you're mad that the Father's not coming back. But to give my final take on the Blood Swamps, it's the level I remember the most, probably because it was the most difficult for me, and it felt like it was never gonna end. Even now, it still kicked my ass at points. I will say I'm a little bit conflicted about the level because part of me feels that it goes on for too long. But on the flip side, this is a DLC and we only have 3 levels, so it makes sense that the levels are longer. So I don't know how I feel about that. I'm kind of mixed. But then I remembered also, yeah, the whole point is that this is a trial that's supposed to be borderline impossible according to the lore, as many Sentinels have tried to complete this challenge to meet the Father, and we're the only ones to have succeeded. That being said, while I initially played the DLC when it first came out, I felt the buffs the spirits gave were a bit much, and the adjustment done with the patches I think made them a little bit more balanced. The difficulty is still high, but not as rage-inducing as it was at launch. At least not on Ultra Violence. On Nightmare, that's probably another story, since if you die once, you gotta restart the entire DLC. Yeah, you can keep that, I ain't touching that. And like I said, despite the difficulty and it being a little frustrating, I would say this is the level I remember the most, despite me liking the visuals of the previous level and the one we're about to get to more. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's because the music in this area is better than the other two, at least to me anyway. But anyway, on to the final level. Damn. Urdak has really let itself go, huh? Yeah, the demons have done a number on this place, and as a result, Urdak looks a lot darker and less tranquil than last time we visited. The forests have been corrupted, and they're overtaking things too, and overall, it's still a beautiful looking area, but it's just a little more sinister. For some reason, this is the level I remember the least. And I'm not sure why that is, because it does have a boss fight at the end. But for some reason, I barely remember how the stage goes. But in terms of difficulty, I wouldn't say this level is as hard as the Blood Swamps. But when it does lay on the difficulty, it can get pretty nasty. Especially if you do the optional encounter where you fight a possessed marauder. But outside of that, there's one encounter at the end that does get pretty vicious, I'm not gonna lie. Our goal is to venture to the Luminarium to revive the Dark Lord so we can kill him. To do that, we gotta go through the Crimson Forest, and we also meet a new enemy, the Bloodmaker. Even the Makers aren't immune to demonic corruption. These Makers are resistant to damage until they do their charge attacks that causes them to lower their shield. They'll flash and make a noise like the Marauder while their shield is down. A single headshot from the precision bolt will kill them. The most annoying thing about them is that a lot of their attacks have the ability to slow your movement if they land, which can get you killed if there's other demons around. You also can't damage them while the shield is up, so you have to wait for them to do one of two big attacks and then shoot them, which can be a bit annoying. Good news is, if you have BFG ammo spare, you can use that to lower their shield, and then you could just swap to the precision bolt and kill them a bit faster. In the right conditions, these guys can be irritating, and we will be seeing a bunch of them here. There's one noteworthy arena here with a bunch of pillars in it. To start the first part of the encounter, we press a switch, and the floor becomes electrified, so we gotta stand on the lowered pillars and fend off a wave of enemies. When it's over, we can walk on the floor again, but we have to activate the second switch, which triggers the next part of the encounter, where the pillars are raised up and electrified, so we have little room to maneuver here. This part can actually be a little challenging. Once we're past that, we get to the Luminarium, but we've got several brutal fights to get through, with the battles capping off with a possessed tyrant who takes way too long to kill. Not gonna lie, I died a few times here. But after that, we just gotta walk into the Luminarium and fire it up to revive the Dark Lord, and then we can... Oh, the Seraphim's here. You aren't still mad about us breaking the Father's life sphere in front of you, are you? Yeah, I've been waiting to kick Hayden's ass since the end of 2016. I guess now's the time. Remember when I said the Gladiator might be my favorite boss, but there was one in the DLC that might dethrone it? This is who I was talking about. Samur Maker, the Seraphim. Samur is a challenging fight, and the thing is, and I really like this about him, he's not trying to go toe-to-toe with you. He's constantly zipping around the arena, and he never sits still, which makes him harder to hit, but it also shows that he's thinking more tactically than, say, the Gladiator, who would just stand there, and fight you head on. He likes to hang back and hurl projectiles while also manipulating the arena to benefit him. The first phase of this fight is the most straightforward. Once you do enough damage though, he starts summoning these electrical orbs that float around the arena and will damage you if you get too close. You can destroy the eye at the center of the electricity field to shut them down, but after a certain amount of time he will make more of them. After you deplete that health bar, he switches to the next phase, and this is where the difficulty skyrockets. Yeah, he puts up a shield that's tied to 2 possessed demons. You gotta kill both spirits to break the shield. Good news is he does not attack you and remain stationary until you lower it. Bad news is you gotta fight 2 possessed demons. Now, the devs threw you a bone, they decided to be merciful, and they put a checkpoint at the start of this phase. So if you die here, you just restart the shield part. You don't have to start it all the way at the beginning, thankfully. When his shield goes down, you get to bully him for his lunch money for a second. The fight's not over, by the way, because now he decides to turn the arena into a platforming challenge where you can only stand on certain platforms, and they electrify after a certain amount of time. Oh, and there's Caco Demons. Samurai cannot be touched during this phase. Then to add extra onto this, he has a grid of lasers sweeping the area, so you gotta juggle that too, while avoiding being electrocuted and avoiding the Caco Demon. After you've eliminated all the Caco Demons, Samurai changes the arena again, and the battle goes on like the first phase, but now the arena has a more complex layout and the laser grid stays on. Oh, and he summons Bloodmakers now. Remember when I said the Bloodmakers' big attacks apply a movement debuff? Yeah, this is one of those situations where that can become extremely annoying, especially if they catch you with it and you're on the ground level. Because on top of the laser grid, shock orbs patrol the area. Once you reduce his health to 0 again, the fight still ain't over. He goes back to his spirit shield strat again, but the arena doesn't change and he turns off the shock orbs for you. There's also a Megasphere here, and once again the devs are merciful enough to give you a checkpoint. And I'm glad they did, because you will need it, because I have died a bunch of times at this part. And his last part is pretty tough because he's still spawning Bloodmakers on top of the possessed enemies. But once you break the shield, the fight's over.
He was my servant. On my command, he removed me from this place. It is not required that you end his life. Your mission here is now your own. Armies, not a king, but a warrior of the Dark Realm. The fiercest among them, as only the strongest could rule the demons. It is you, in their world.
Yeah, so we revived the Dark Lord and he looks just like us. Actually, it would be more accurate to say we look like him, since according to the intern, he's like a decillion years old. As to why the Slayer looks like him, I'm not 100% sure. Because the father says he is you in their world, and since we're dealing with alternate dimensions and this isn't the Doomslayer's original dimension, he might very well just be this universe's version of us. It could be that he's simply copying our form since we were holding the life sphere this entire time. That's a potential theory I've seen some people bring up. There's another possible reason why, although this one I think doesn't have as much weight to it and involves something not fully revealed until part 2, so I'll discuss it then and why I don't think that's the case. But yeah, we end on that cliffhanger, and I will say it's an effective cliffhanger because I was sitting there going, wait, what the fuck? Couldn't wait for part 2. Overall, I'd say this DLC is pretty fun. Maybe at launch I'd say the difficulty was a little overtuned at points, but now with some of the alterations, I'd say it's still a challenging campaign, but not to the point where you are going to pull your hair out. Well, at least not on Ultra Violence. I wouldn't make a serious attempt to try and beat the base game of Nightmare, let alone this DLC on that difficulty. And I distinctly remember having to lower the difficulty on my initial playthrough when I got about halfway through the blood spawns because I was stuck at one point on that for what felt like an hour. Difficulty aside, the levels themselves both look and for the most part are fun to explore and play. But what is a mixed bag for me is the music. Like I said earlier, the music for the Blood Swamps is the only bit that I say I really like. That's not to say the other music is bad, it just doesn't really stand out to me. Then there's the story. My gripes with making Hayden not human the entire time aside, it's okay. Given that we don't clear Sammer, they're clearly setting him up to be a future antagonist. Ending with a confusing cliffhanger as to why the Dark Lord looks like us is a nice way to get people hyped for whatever happens in part 2. And I will say, Sammer's boss fight is tough but really fun, and now that I think about it, yeah, I think I like it a little more than the Gladiator. Mostly because I spend more of the fight actually being able to damage him, rather than waiting for an opening like you would with the Gladiator. It's just hard to hit him sometimes because he zips around the arena a lot, but that's not really that big of a deal. The only part that I would say is a bit of a mixed bag with Sammer's fight is the shield part with the spirits. That's a little bit annoying. But with the modifications they made to difficulty, I think it's a little bit more fair and fun now. So you're probably wondering why I opened the video up stating the Ancient Gods was a mistake, right? Because it seems like I've been pretty positive about part 1. That's because, unfortunately, it's all downhill from here.
No blood can be spilled in this holy place. Our time will come. If you survive, I will be waiting for you at the city of IMMORA.
Part 2 kicks off right where part 1 left us off. Yeah, if you were hoping for more of an explanation as to why the Dark Lord looks like us, well, keep wondering because he just leaves and tells us to come fight him in a place called IMMORA. But to do that, we gotta go through a side quest that requires us to go back to Argent Denor. I'll be honest, I kind of forget about the first 2 levels when talking about this DLC. This first one looks nice on a technical level with this huge waterfall and the giant bridge. We're immediately greeted by our objective, the World Spear, that giant crystal sticking out of the ground. According to lore, it's some sort of cosmic crystal that pierces the surface of Argent Denor, and it's so massive it's skewering the planet and it's like coming out of the other pole, you know, the opposite one. It hit this planet millions of years ago, and the Wraiths and their magic poured out and it created life on the planet. We need to get inside of that. Now, all of that sounds really cool, right? But, and I hate to say it, this level's kind of boring for the most part. Spent a lot of our time fighting through an abandoned medieval alien town that's been overtaken with vegetation. I suppose it does contrast to more gloomy and dark and mysterious locations we usually go to, so I'll give it points for that. But I don't know, it's not doing it for me, and I don't know what it is. But the level does get more interesting later on when we get closer to the spear and have to traverse this more wintry looking area. But we aren't there yet because this DLC adds a few new things right away. First of all being meat hook grapple points. You just let you use your super shotgun's meat hook to grapple onto these to swing around to get to places you wouldn't be able to with your normal double jump or dash. Kinda neat, but that's minor compared to some of the other things they've added. We're introduced to several new enemies here, the first being the Screecher zombies. They're basically the same as the normal zombies, but if you make the mistake of shooting them, they scream and buff any demons that are nearby for a short amount of time. I remember watching a video somewhere where Hugo, the game director, stated that they wanted a monster that made the player think twice about firing their weapons carelessly. And I'm gonna be honest, they're just kinda there. On this playthrough, I think I set them off once, and that was because I forgot the upgraded precision bolt sends out a shockwave when you kill demons with a headshot. and that shockwave can set off the Screecher. Oh, and the Screecher can't be killed with a chainsaw either. When all enemies in the area are dead, the Screechers will also die. Like I said, they're forgettable, and unfortunately that becomes a trend with the new enemies on the roster. The next one, which is a little bit less forgettable, is the Armored Baron. This Baron, I guess he raided a hardware store because he has a Morning Star for a hand, and he's now covered in armor, as the name suggests. There's two ways to break the armor. The easiest way is to wait for him to charge up the Morning Star for that long range attack. It will flash green. If you shoot it with a powerful weapon, the armor shatters instantly. The other way is sustained fire from the plasma rifle, and this is another enemy where the microwave beam can be effective. But I never do that, and I just shoot the mace when it flashes green. Their armor does regenerate after a certain amount of time, so you will be repeating the process, which can be a little bit annoying. The armor also renders them immune to damage until you destroy it, so they can be a little tanky. Thankfully though, they are less aggressive than the normal Baron. I'm kind of mixed on them, like I don't hate them, but I don't love them either. They're just kind of there for me. As to where they got the armor from, according to the codex, they got it from IMMORA, which is really odd since the technology in IMMORA typically has a red color scheme, like a red and black scheme with orange and yellow as like a highlight, but the Baron's armor isn't that. Concept art exists for them with the red armor, and I wonder why they didn't go with that. But there's one more new enemy introduced here, the Stone Imp. Take a normal imp, but make them highly resistant to all forms of damage besides the full auto mode for the shotgun and the Sentinel Hammer, which I will talk about that in a second. Oh, and give them the ability to curl into a ball and ram you like they're Sonic the Hedgehog. That's a Stone Imp. I think I'm making this sound way more interesting than it actually is because they are forgettable. You can chainsaw them just like the normal imp too. Outside of those two changes in their appearance, they don't feel that different from the normal version. To me, and this might sound a little harsh, but they kind of feel like an enemy that someone made a mod for Doom, not something made by the studio itself. And while we're talking about new things introduced in this level, last but certainly not least is the Sentinel Hammer. Remember the Betrayer, whose real name is Commander Valen? I don't think I ever called him by his actual name. He's here. Well, kinda. He projects a ghostly version of himself here and gives you his hammer.
My son's curse has been lifted, and I atone for my sins.
I guess Sentinels can just project themselves to other people and physically gift items to people despite them not actually being there. Damn, online shopping on their planet must be incredible. Could you imagine your delivery guy just materializes in front of you and you just touch and hold the ghostly version of whatever you ordered and it just suddenly appears in front of you, no questions asked? Would save a lot of money on shipping and handling fees, wouldn't it? Anyway, the hammer is kind of broken. The way it works is the Slayer leaps high into the air and slams it on the ground, which creates a big ass shockwave that can kill enemies outright or stun them depending on how much health they have. If you've lit an enemy on fire or frozen them and then used the hammer, they'll drop more health and ammo. Normal enemies that are caught by the shockwave will also drop resources. It also extends the stun on any enemies that are already stunned, so you know how the Marauder is stunned after you hit them when they flash green. But you can use the Hellbunker 9000 immediately afterwards to extend that stun time, and this makes the Marauder stupidly easy to kill now. And that's not a complaint. Oh, and this thing also insta-kills any stone imps caught in the blast, and according to the wiki, it can extend the time it takes for the Armored Baron to regenerate their armor. The way it charges up is by destroying enemy weak points or by performing glory kills. And like the Crucible in the base game, there are charges found on the map or dropped by specific enemies too. Because of how easy it is to charge the hammer, it contributes to another thing that I quickly noticed about this DLC. It's significantly easier than Part 1. That might be because the devs got feedback that Part 1 might have been too difficult, so it seems like there was an effort to make Part 2 easier, and the hammer is certainly helping with that. So back to the level itself. After fighting our way through the city, we come to a giant torch called the Torch of Kings. Lighting it lets all the wandering Sentinel tribes know we're going to war with IMMORA. Think of it like that scene in Lord of the Rings where the torches of Gondor are lit to signal them calling for aid. That's basically what's happening here. Then something really damn cool happens.
Corrupted priests forbid the use of this beacon. If there are any remaining free tribes left in Argentinor, all will see this light and know what your mission is here.
We are still a day's walk away from the World Sphere. Seems you're not the only one who wants this mission accomplished. If you defeat the Dark Lord, any demon outside of Hell would be destroyed.
Yeah, we ride a motherfucking dragon up to the World Sphere. Unfortunately, this cutscene is ruined for me because of a slight graphical glitch. If that's the only technical problem that happens with this, I'm cool with it. Unfortunately, the dragon doesn't back us up any further and we gotta fight our way to the sphere. We end up finding another new feature they add to the game, escalation encounters. The way it works is each encounter has 2 stages. The first is mandatory, the second, harder encounter is 100% optional. Completing the first encounter gives you a hammer upgrade, this one gives you an upgrade that makes the demons hit by the hammer drop more ammo. If you complete the second encounter, you get a skin. Eventually, we fight our way to the base of the sphere.
It's worthy.
Yeah, the father is still helping us despite what we did. I'm guessing the reason why is because he wants DAVOTH gone. Oh yeah, DAVOTH is the Dark Lord's name, by the way. I guess he wants DAVOTH dead too. Inside the World Sphere, we do some platforming, and then the intern tells us that the sphere is actually a ship. This doesn't go anywhere in this game, but there are these ghostly seraphims around us. Who they are and why they're here is not explained either, but we grab the crystal we need to power up the only portal to get us into IMMORA. Remember this because I'm going to go into a minor rant about this a little bit later. Onto the portal. It's on Earth because of course it is. Why is it on Earth? Well, according to the Codex, Father made it in secret so he could spy on IMMORA. Good thing I double checked that because I was about to go into a rant about why that didn't make any sense because I assumed that DAVOTH had done it, but no. The father doing that makes a little bit more sense. Let's get into the next level. This is another level that I'm gonna be honest, I kind of forgot existed before playing this again. And I'm a little bit confused about the way it looks because of the vegetation. How long has it been since we stopped hell from consuming Earth? Because of all this vegetation going around, you would think it's been a long time that this place has been abandoned. And the reason why I bring that up is because if you notice, anywhere where hell is taking over, there's no vegetation. Everything is like arid and dead and rocky and fiery. Obviously all the lava and stuff, I get that would go away once hell's influence on Earth went away, but how much time has it passed where all this vegetation can just be here? As for those gray growth looking things, at first I thought they were supposed to be plants, but then I realized it's more like calcified versions of that fleshy organic growth that we saw in the other corrupted cities in the base game. The aesthetic isn't bad, but I try not to be mean, but this just feels like every abandoned city overtaken by nature that I've seen. And nothing about it really makes you go, wow, this looks amazing. There are some pretty locations like the flooded subway tunnel part, that was pretty neat. And the giant fortress in the background is also cool. Okay, but enough about the level's aesthetics. How does it actually play? I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's okay. They introduced 2 new enemies to the roster here. The Cursed Prowler and the Riot Soldier. Remember how I said the Stone Imp felt like a modded enemy? That rings true for these monsters as well, as they are painfully forgettable. The Cursed Prowler behaves like the normal Prowler until it hits you. If it strikes you, you get cursed, and you will take constant damage over time, and you'll be unable to dash. The only way to lift the curse is to Blood Punch the Cursed Prowler, because it won't take damage from anything else. The game does give you a free charge for a Blood Punch the minute you are cursed, so you aren't completely shit out of luck if you don't have one beforehand. The Cursed Prowler will try to run away from you, but you get a marker telling you where it is. I don't remember if I ever got cursed by one of these in this run, and if it did, it didn't last very long. They're barely worth writing about. The Riot Soldier is even less interesting. Take the normal shield soldier, give it a chain gun, red armor, and an unbreakable golden shield. And you can't kill them with a chainsaw while the shield is raised, too. The only way to damage them is to chuck a frag grenade over them, or use the remote detonate mod to fire a rocket, and then when the rocket passes by their shield, then press the button to detonate it. That's it. Again, barely even worth talking about. The rest of the level is more fighting, another escalation encounter that gives you another hammer upgrade, and we get to test it on a marauder, and it makes them pretty easy to get rid of. Not a complaint. We fight through the streets, the buildings, and into the fortress. We make it to the portal and plug in the crystal to power the gate, and then we can go to IMMORA to confront the Dark Lord. So, we open this level up with an epic cutscene that they used in the trailers for good reason. We're standing outside of IMMORA, and the Dark Lord has his mech suit, and we get some backup. I am 1000% convinced that this scene was inspired by the portal scene in Avengers Endgame. You cannot convince me otherwise. As much as I think from a visual standpoint this is really cool, it causes a huge issue though, because I have a question. How exactly did they all get here? They were not in the city when we got inside the fortress and activated the portal, and according to the father and everyone else, it was heavily implied this was the only way to get into IMMORA unless you were the Dark Lord himself. So, how did they all get here? I know this is a Doom game, and Doom games typically don't have deep stories or anything, but that's just a blatant contradiction. But of all this DLC's problems, this is far from the biggest issue. So the first part of this level has us fighting to get closer to the wall, and somehow the game soft-locked me here. You see, there's a spot where the game puts up walls and you're supposed to fight all the demons in the area to make them lower. Pretty normal, right, for arena shooters. The problem is, besides the father demons that just constantly respawn so you can replenish your ammo, nothing else was spawning here. So I was stuck. I thought I had missed something and doubled back to another part of the area to see if maybe there was an enemy that had spawned there that was just stuck or something, but no. Good news is, a simple checkpoint reset fixed it, but that was pretty odd. I don't remember that happening before though. Hopefully there aren't any other weird bugs. Eventually we get launched through the wall and get inside the city.
Idea Hell had their own technology. It must have been centralized here, like some kind of ruling elite.
You may notice that this city looks very different from the other cities in Hell. You may have also noticed a very similar design language to Urdak, besides the red hair color scheme. There is a reason for that, but I will refrain from mentioning it until we get to the Dark Lord. I will say, IMMORA is fucking beautiful. I like fighting around the city while the ships battle above, and I'm a sucker for giant alien cities with weird architecture, with insanely tall buildings that we fight atop of. One thing that unfortunately I'm not a fan of though is the last new enemy introduced, the Demonic Trooper. If you played Doom 2016, you'll notice the suits they wear are armor sets from that game's multiplayer. Same for the weapons they carry. They are arguably the weakest enemies in the game, and weirdly enough you can't glory kill them or chainsaw them, but they will drop ammo when killed. You might find it weird that there are human-like entities here since, in case it wasn't clear, IMMORA is part of Hell. Well, that's because they get regular infusions of Hell energy to keep themselves from transforming into demons. I can't sugarcoat it, these guys are clearly a rush job. Ancient Gods Part 2 as a whole feels like a rush job, and I'll get to why that is later on. For now, we end up in a potentially nasty area where the game sends 2 marauders on us with a bunch of screechers. This fight would be hell if you don't have a Sentinel hammer charge. If you do, you can probably burst down one of the marauders in a few seconds. There's one other big arena fight which is a bit challenging, and we see the Dark Lord is heading to the giant citadel in the distance. Once we get past this tough fight, we're treated to a neat cutscene where we hitch a ride on the back of a ship and then dive off. So cool. But before we can challenge the Dark Lord, we have one final challenge. The hardest challenge the game has ever thrown at us. I'm serious. You were not prepared for this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure somebody was having a laugh here. Anyway, onward to the Dark Lord. So, I think I've been pretty negative when it comes to Ancient Gods Part 2, and I wish I could say this final battle turns things around. But unfortunately, it torpedoes this DLC because of how bad it is from a basic level. So brace yourselves. I'm about to get a little harsh when it comes to DAVOTH. But for now, let's just watch the big cutscene.
That fuels creation and gives purpose. where there is none. Stand and fight, Slayer. Honor your true god. Fight and show me your purpose.
So Davoth. Oh boy, Davoth. As stated, we have to defeat him in ritual combat if we want Hell to be sealed and all the other realms to be purged of demons. Davoth faces us fair and square here. He fights with this giant mech suit, but he uses a hollow sword and shield for the most part. The way he works is you have to wait for a green flash, then you hit him and he becomes stunned. You can then use the hammer to extend the stun so you can inflict a ton of damage on him. So he's basically a marauder then, so what's the issue? Well, you see, he takes a page from Melania's book, from Elden Ring. No, he doesn't have a bullshit attack that requires an entire guide to learn how to dodge, thankfully. No, he gets his health back every time he either hits you with the sword or he hits you with the shield bash move. This starts off as being mildly annoying, but it becomes extremely annoying when you get to his final phase. But my major issue with this is there are times where Davoth lowers his shield before he swings his sword. In a way where you think you could shoot him, don't do that because it does nothing and you will likely get hit and he will just get his health back. Even though his shield is lowered, so your eyes would tell you, oh, I can hit him now. I get that you wouldn't stun him because it's not the green flash attack thing, but still, you'd think you'd be able to damage him, but you can't. The other problem is you basically just stand there evading his other attacks, like him summoning spirit wolves that drop hammer charges and avoiding his back mounted cannon that he'll fire at you if you get too far away. And when it's time for his big attack, if your timing is a millisecond off, sometimes the game will just ignore that you hit him before his attack came out and you will do 0 damage and get hit instead, and he will regenerate health, and it is beyond frustrating. I thought this was a bug, but they never patched it out. Also, it seems like certain weapons can't make him falter in time, which is also annoying. And I've seen mods that make adjustments to this fight that do make it better, like having it so you can attack him anytime his shield is lowered. But you just won't stun him unless it's when he's flashing green. But sadly, that's not how the canon version of this fight works. I also just find the concept really dull. Like, this is the Dark Lord of Hell. Like, you couldn't find something more cool than this. And even him being in a giant robot suit is something that I'm a little bit mixed on. I was hoping that he would jump out of that suit at some point and do something else. Since, you know, granted he is a fallen god, but still. He doesn't really give off that vibe when you fight him. Just feels like a missed opportunity to me. Now the good news is, if you deplete a segment of his health bar, he can't regenerate it if he gets too many hits in. But once you deplete his first health bar, he warps the battle to somewhere else in hell, and I won't lie, this is a bitching arena. The music is also pretty good. See? I can say something nice about Davoth. Although, I will say I'm more inclined to liking the music Geoff Play's guitar made for this fight called Fall of Davoth. If you haven't heard it, give it a listen. People have modded it into the game and modified it to change during different phases of the fight, which is pretty awesome. And I think it actually fits better than the official music, even though the official music is fine. But after you deplete his second health bar, we get a cutscene where Davoth drops a bombshell on us.
For too long have I been imprisoned by my own creations. You will not stop my vengeance, nor the one who betrayed me. Tell him.
He is the first being, and my creator. When he fell, I ascended.
They lied to you, Slayer. IMMORA and its people would have been perfect, if not for the treachery of my servants. They sealed me away, stole my power and name. And now, the time has come for a reckoning. As all things were made by my hand, so shall they be unmade, starting with you.
Yeah, so Davoth is the first being and god. I'm gonna take a slight detour here to talk about the lore and why I dislike how this reveal is handled. Bear with me for a minute here because I am probably gonna rant for a while. Disclaimer, what I'm saying here is based on what we know from Eternal and 2016. If the Dark Ages introduce something that contradicts this, well, it is what it is. I haven't played the game yet. Okay, so there's two versions of history. The one everybody in the universe knows, which is Maker propaganda, where the people of Jakad, which would later become Hell, were mortals but were extremely talented. The people of Jakad lived a long time but didn't have immortality like the Makers. The Father created DAVOTH, and DAVOTH was meant to govern them and love them deeply, but he was concerned about them all dying off because he didn't want to be alone in Jakad. So DAVOTH and his people devoted a ton of time to try and figure out a way to essentially beat death. The Father grew concerned and saw a future where DAVOTH would threaten all of creation, so the Father sealed Jakad from all of the realms, which pissed off DAVOTH, and this led to him becoming the Dark Lord and his realm becoming Hell. Hell and Urdak went to war, and ultimately DAVOTH was defeated and his essence was stripped away, and he was sealed away in a life sphere. While DAVOTH didn't have a body, his mind was still free. Think of it as being a spectator in a multiplayer game while in voice chat with your team. While you cannot directly participate and fight the enemy team yourself, you can give your buddies intel on what they're doing. So everything I just explained to you, for the most part, is a lie. Because DAVOTH was the one who actually created Father, and the reason why is because DAVOTH did fear his creations, the people of Jakad, dying, and was saddened by that. And I imagine most parents don't want to see their children die. So he created Father and the Makers to help him figure out a way to stop them from dying. He pretty much had the motivation Anakin Skywalker had in the prequel trilogy, which ultimately led him to embrace the dark side. What happened here is the Makers did figure out a way to grant immortality, but they were afraid what would happen if DAVOTH was told about it. So the Makers, they did just a little bit of a coup, just a minor coup, and sealed him away in Jakad. Understandably, this pissed DAVOTH off, and his rage caused Jakad to become corrupted and turn most of its inhabitants, besides the people of IMMORA, into demon. Like in the Maker version of history, DAVOTH was defeated and sealed away. The Maker that did this then became known as a Father, and while he was sealed away in the light sphere, he began scheming because he wanted to destroy his creations and unmake everything. Which, I mean, can you blame him when they double-cross you like that? He basically pulled a Palpatine and manipulated so many events to make things happen. For instance, he manipulated Samur into putting the Doomslayer into the Divinity Machine, knowing that one day the Doomslayer would help bring about the destruction of Urdak. The guy was playing 4D chess to not only get revived, but get revenge on everybody. So if you're wondering why the tech in IMMORA looks very similar to the tech in Urdak, it's because they all come from the same source, which is DAVOTH. Another theory I've seen people bring up as to why we look like DAVOTH is because of the Divinity Machine, but I'm not sure that's the case since this game states that the Doomslayer is the original Doom Marine, and his in-game model for his face looks like the original Doom Marine too. So I don't know. I don't think that one works that well. But okay, I gave you the cliff notes on the deep lore about that. So why does this reveal suck? For one, this is coming way too late in the game for us to really process it because this is such a brief exchange in the middle of a boss fight. How me explain this to you has probably given you more time to process and understand the ramifications and implications of this than the actual game does. To put in perspective how weird I find this, to me, this would be like if we didn't find out that Darth Vader is Luke's father until right before Luke goes apeshit on Vader in the throne room in Return of the Jedi. Like, this is something that I feel like you could have built an entirely different game around. And this feels like it would have been a shocking, like, midpoint reveal, like, right before the end game level of reveal. That, oh yeah, DAVOTH is the original god. Again, to go back to my Star Wars example, we find out that Luke is Vader's son close to the end of Empire Strikes Back, and we're given some time where Luke is processing that because that's pretty shocking. And even in Return of the Jedi, we get more info as to what's going on and further confirmation that, yeah, Vader is Luke's dad, and Obi-Wan be lying. We have an entire movie about how Luke handles that news and how that ultimately leads to Vader kind of redeeming himself and the destruction of the Empire and Palpatine. Well, before the dark times, before the mouse got involved, but that's a whole other can of worms that we're not going to go into that in this video. The problem is with this DAVOTH reveals that we don't really get any time to react to it. Like, it's just revealed and then we're back into the boss fight. Because, spoiler alert, we killed DAVOTH after this. So this reveal just feels really abrupt. Like, if I was just explaining the plot and said, oh, by the way, the Dark Lord is God and we kill him, end of story, you'd probably be like, wait, what? You're not just going to rush past it like you didn't just say what you just said.
I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. Wait, first of all, you're not gonna speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
And the other thing is, they give DAVOTH an actually pretty interesting motivation, and I just feel like he's wasted that he's locked in this DLC and just gets killed off in a fight that honestly doesn't really feel that epic. Okay, rant over. I think I've talked your head off enough about why I think the story took a nosedive with this, and that DAVOTH was kind of mishandled. Okay. So now we're teleported back to the Sanctum where we got the Life Sphere from, and this is where the fight gets way more frustrating, because in addition to summoning Spirit Wolves, DAVOTH can summon spirit versions of some of the more powerful demons. Now the good news is you can use the hammer to kill them instantly if they're all in range. The problem is, using the hammer like this deprives you of using the hammer to stun DAVOTH, so you can actually get some big damage in. So this makes the final phase of this fight take longer, and he seems to get a lot more aggressive too. And when I initially played this part of the fight kept going on for so long, I had to lower the difficulty because I was just not having fun anymore. This time, DAVOTH decided to attack the fourth wall and crashed my game. I had to whip out Task Manager to close the game because it just locked up and there was nothing I could do. Good news is, the checkpoint did put me in the last bit of the fight, which is good. Anyway, we defeat DAVOTH, and well, I'm just gonna let the ending play.
Before you strike him down. Okay. Time for the rest of my rant when it comes to this entire DLC. The reason why I said this DLC was a bit of a mistake is twofold. The first major issue I have is it is introducing too much to cram in 2 DLC packs. Like, we just killed the Lord of Hell after finding out he's actually a god. We destroyed the Father's Life Sphere, meaning he can't come back. We had to reveal that Hayden is a Seraphim, and now we've sealed Hell away and killed all the demons outside of it. All of this feels like it could have been saved for a fully fledged sequel,
with a more fleshed out story instead of this, which feels kind of condensed and rushed, to be honest. The other problem I have is, where do we go from here as a story? Because the Doomslayer is depowered and sealed away by whoever the hell these other Seraphim are, and Hell is also sealed, and it sounds like it can't infect other realms anymore. So if there's a sequel to this game, I can't imagine Hell being the big threat, or at least it would have to share the spotlight with something else. So just what do they do here? I guess they could make Urdak like the primary antagonist going forward, but the problem with that is we know that Urdak was pretty much destroyed, or at least heavily damaged, and judging from the way it looks, it doesn't really seem like Urdak has like an army or anything. And with Father's Sphere destroyed, can they really restore him? I mean, Samur is still out there, so maybe he'll mutate into something more powerful. I don't know. It honestly feels like they may have written themselves into a corner here with this DLC's ending. And I'm wondering if that is why The Dark Ages is a prequel and not just another sequel, because maybe they couldn't figure out what to do. From one of the pre-release trailers for The Dark Ages, I know there's now another realm called the Cosmic Realm, and according to the Doom Wiki, the World Spear's design is similar to that, so maybe the Cosmic Realm will be a big threat going forward when a sequel to Eternal does eventually come out. I don't know, it just feels like they could have saved all of this for a Doom Eternal sequel or something, and I keep thinking, what if we didn't kill the Dark Lord at the end? What if instead of facing him in IMMORA, you fought him somewhere else and he drops the bombshell and you fight him, but the fight ends in a draw and both parties have to fall back, setting up a rematch and a sequel? That could have been a cool way to end the DLC and setting up a future installment and answering the questions that the reveal that DAVOTH was the original god raises. Like, that could be a whole thing that leave us, you know, hanging and like, oh, how's that gonna play out in Doom Eternal 2 or whatever they end up calling it. I don't know what they're gonna call it. The other problem is the Ancient Gods Part 2 feels very rushed, and there's an elephant in the room that I haven't mentioned yet for a reason, and something tells me people are probably typing it in the comments, or probably have already left comments talking about it. That elephant in the room is called the pandemic, because COVID hit right around the time the base game launched, so as the world went on lockdown, a lot of studios had to transition to remote work in order to comply with said lockdowns, and where depending on where you were in the world, those lockdowns were a lot harsher than others. On top of that, they had a deadline imposed by Bethesda to get these DLCs done within 1 year of release. Talk about a brutal deadline, am I right? This likely led to a lot of crunch and also a lot of things being cut. And one thing that I know was cut was that DAVOTH's fight was supposed to go differently. Hugo Martin said in the concepting stage, DAVOTH was supposed to jump out of that mech suit and transform into some kind of dragon looking thing. I even saw a concept art at one point of you fighting while other god entities watch too. We sort of got that as those ghostly seraphim that watch the fight at the start. They have subtitles when they speak, and the subtitles label them as the ancient gods, so I guess that's what they are, even though they look like they're just reusing Hayden's robe Seraphim model. I'm gonna chalk that up to, again, the tight deadline they were running with. But that deadline also explains why the demonic troopers are asset flips from 2016, and why a lot of the new enemies are mostly recolors of older ones, with one new ability and some slight modifications. While I can't deny I had fun with the DLCs, and there are moments even in 2 that are pretty fun, it's not the best. It's a mixed bag, honestly. Like, the best part in part 2 is IMMORA, mostly because I like the aesthetic, and the whole battle scene is kind of neat, even if I have to ignore how the setup contradicts some stuff, but whatever, it's fine. Part 1, I would say though, overall is the better experience in my opinion, even if its difficulty can make your blood pressure spike in certain encounters. And while overall I would say part 2 is less frustrating and the hammer kind of trivializes a lot of stuff, the levels just don't feel that impressive besides IMMORA, and the quest new additions to the enemy roster and that god-awful battle with DAVOTH makes the whole DLC feel like a huge step down for me. And I'll make this clear, I'm not saying these DLCs are bad, or that part 2 is bad, it's just really disappointing. And I still question the decision to kill off a major character like the Dark Lord in a DLC like this. But maybe, if the DLC was allowed more time in the oven and the pandemic didn't happen in the middle of development, I'd have a more positive opinion of it. But unfortunately, we don't live in that timeline. I can't judge something based on what it could have been. I gotta judge it for what it is. So that's my thoughts on Doom Eternal's The Ancient Gods DLC. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think I'm being a little too harsh on it? I knew I was gonna have some choice words for The Ancient Gods Part 2 in the DAVOTH fight, but I just didn't realize how much I had to say. So the next episode, the Doomed Retrospective, will be on Doom 2016. After that, I might take a break and review a different game and then come back and start chipping away at the rest. I made a list of games that I definitely want to do vids on, so I might grab a smaller one from that isn't part of a series and do that, but I'll have to keep you guys posted. If you liked the video, please leave a like, comment, sub, all that stuff that makes me a good boy in YouTube's algorithm. And if you didn't check the previous video where I talked about the base game, go check that out. It's a bit longer than this video, but I think it's worth it. And again, thank you guys for the views, and I didn't expect the first video to do half as well as it did, so I just want to say thanks again. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you in another video.